Okay. So you take all that, and then you add in virtual touch sensation. So this is haptics, and this is really cool. So for me, I've had a lot of experience inside these virtual worlds, and there's times where you get really caught up in it, and you reach out to touch something, and then you remember, oh yeah, I'm just in a room with a headset on. That is going to change. And this is changing right now with haptic technology. And what this does is this tricks the brain that much more into believing that this is a real experience. So this is an example of a retail experience that I got to try at CES, and then this is also a couple companies that I work with. The headset is Meta 2, and the haptics technology is by Ultra Haptics, which is a company out of Bristol, a startup. With a lot of haptics, you wear wearables or you have controls, and they give you vibration senses. But what's unique about this one is you don't actually have to touch anything or wear anything. This uses sono technology. So this is airwaves. So you can actually feel shakes, you can feel textures, you can feel temperatures, you can feel wetness, you can feel sharpness, you can feel zaps. And this is a way to communicate like we haven't been able to do before. So this particular one was done for a car company. Zero Light did the software. And what you're able to do is by wearing this headset, you can go inside a car, you can feel this wheel that goes around, and you can choose the different colors. And as you're doing this, it's giving you this feedback. So you feel like you're really pressing a button, it feels like you're really turning the wheel, and it's able to produce this customization and personalization in real time that you're interacting with and that you can feel. You can actually go inside, you can touch the leather, you can feel the engine, and it's a really cool way that I think this is going to make this more of a technology that people are going to get involved with. Oops. So another thing that we can add to these experiences that are going to take them up to another level is data. So this is an experiment that I did when the HTC Vive came out, and I measured the emotional data of people ages 3 to 80 as they tried virtual reality for the very first time. So your emotional data is things like your biodata. So this is your heart rate, your sweat glands, your blood pressure, all this kind of stuff. So it really is able to tell us how these experiences are impacting you. And what I found was really fascinating. So people sort of mid-20s and older, there was this really steep kind of hill climb of data. Basically showing that, you know, you're not in Kansas anymore, like you are definitely in another kind of reality that, that is different from your own. Whereas younger generations, when they picked this up, there was this moment of, whoa, isn't this cool? This is weird and cool. But then it went back to their regular data as they had in reality. And what this is an example of is how technology, the line between technology and self is really starting to blur. And for these new generations, this is, the line is hardly existent. So I mean, most of you probably have phones in your hands at the moment. We've become a part of this technology. And so this is the future of where this technology is going, becoming a bigger part of us, becoming a new layer on top of our reality that we interact with. So there's a company called The Mill, and they've taken this kind of research one step further. And what they've done is they've incorporated this into the virtual reality experience to create a generative experience, a personalized generative experience. So using your biodata, it actually affects what you see and what you feel within these virtual worlds. So if I am really anxious, I might see something different from somebody who is really calm. If I'm really happy, I might have a different experience from somebody who's really upset. Which is a really interesting way to start thinking about it. And then if we can do this now with our biodata, where I see this going in a couple years' time is being able to do this with our brainwaves. So there's lots of research being done right now about brain-operated technology. And the potential here is that we'll be able to design things from our brain into this virtual space. or we'll be able to produce memories inside this virtual space that we can then share like a photograph. So the potential here is really exciting. It is a couple years off, but it's good to know about. Another area that I'm really fascinated with at the moment is synesthesia. So I work for Wired UK a bit, and they called me up and asked me to do an exhibition and a talk on the future of food and beverage and synesthesia. And I said, yes, of course. And I hung up the phone and quickly Googled synesthesia because I didn't know what it was. And what it is, it's when your wiring of your brain, the senses, gets crossed. So when you see a color and you get a taste in your mouth, or when you hear a note of music and you see a color. And what's really interesting is that with these new realities, we have the potential to unlock new parts of the brain. So in my research, I found that every single person is actually born with this capability of synesthesia. And we actually lose it because it's a hard thing to communicate, and we don't actually communicate in that kind of a way. Except as a society, this is often associated with things like genius. So people like Bob Dylan and David Hockney and Pharrell Williams, they all claim that they have synesthesia experiences, and this helps them to inform their art and their creativity. And so what we can potentially do with these new technologies is engage this so that we can trick the brain into having these experiences and opening up this part of our brain that has been dormant. But essentially what I'm talking about here is rewiring the brain. And if that sounds frightening, it shouldn't, because we already have rewired the brain. Anybody who has a phone in front of them right now, your brain's been rewired. And this line between technology and self is becoming increasingly blurred. But I would like to say that this is still a technology in its infancy. And this is an example of gaming transfer phenomenon. So people who play 2D video games, I don't know if some of you might know people who play Minecraft. So this is a good example. People start to report seeing their real environment with boxes around and hearing the sounds from the game. So if you're inside these virtual worlds for a long time, it starts to transpose onto our reality. So the potential for this to happen within the new realities is actually much greater than the 2D gaming experiences. An example of that is I have a friend who's a developer who's been working a lot developing virtual reality games. And he was saying that after spending the day inside these virtual worlds, he comes out and his instinct is to walk across the street in front of a bus. Because in a virtual world, you can walk in front of a bus and nothing happens. You can fall off a cliff and nothing happens. So, to go back into the real world, having had that experience, it changes you and it alters you. So while these technologies are completely impactful and have the potential to really change us, the Oculus only got kickstarted in 2014. So there is no long-term studies that have been done around these technologies. So there is a responsibility in how we move forward with implementing these inside our lives. But the potential for them to change us as humans and bring us together in ways that haven't been possible, to open up new markets, to open up new opportunities that have never existed before, are really exciting. And then also to open up parts of us as humans that maybe we haven't tapped into yet. So in conclusion, the idea is that these new technologies, they can bring people together in more impactful ways and connect us, not just as people and businesses, but also have the potential to change us as humanity. So thank you very much for your time.